Welcome into the FutureSox RoundUp. My name is Elijah Evans, and I'm joined by my co-host Dylan Barnas today. We're back. We're back live. This is our second live show together, my fourth live show in general here on the Roundup, with last week being with Jeff. We're getting used to this thing. We're figuring it out slowly but surely. I'm excited. We've got a few of our regulars in the chat already. Appreciate you guys joining as always. Super excited to just dive into things today. We've got a lot of news in the farm system this week. We had multiple prospect promotions up and down the system. And then, the first month of minor league baseball is already coming to an end here, which is pretty crazy. It's May in a few days from now. So we're gonna do, first of all, dive into our the recent news, the prospect promotions, and then we're gonna get into our April team of the month. Dylan and I put together two players per position on offense, and then a rotation and a bullpen of guys who really stood out within the White Sox farm system this month. We'll just kind of break through all those guys and talk about who is really standing out to start the season. And obviously, it's only 1 month, but in general, I think it's always good to look through the system and see who's performing well, and just dive into what's been working for all these guys and what we see from them moving forward. First of all, Dylan, how you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back on. I had a blast the first time. It was really fun seeing all the comments in chat and answering some questions. But we got a really fun episode planned for you guys. Like Elijah said, Team of the month. First full month of minor league baseball is done, and we've got some guys that are performing really well so far.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we should open up with this because the news just dropped. Baseball Toss, one of our guys who's always asking, what did you think of the Chicago Bulls Jerry Reinsdorf personal special going on with these new jerseys?
I don't know. It kind of felt gimmicky to me. It felt like the Instagram posts you would see back in the day of like, oh, what if these MLB and NBA teams that share the same city swap jerseys? Like, it just seemed very similar to that.
Yeah.
I don't like them.
That's the vibe it gave me too. I don't hate it, but I like the hat. I think the hat's cool.
Yeah,
The
the
old school
hat's pretty
sock
cool.
logo is always cool. I think the dual hat thing. I don't know if you saw. There's two hats, and they're going to switch off between the two colors.
Yeah.
I like the hats in general. I think the jerseys are pretty gimmicky. I think at the end of the day, this is like the most classic Jerry, let's combine both my teams and market to both of them at once and make some money off it. And that's fine. It is what it is. I don't really read too much into jerseys, but I think hat is a yay, jersey is a for me. That's what I would say. That not the worst. There's definitely way worse City Connect jerseys, but not my favorite at all.
All right, I was hoping for red pants though. Red pants.
Yeah, that would have been kind of cool. Would have been unique for
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely would have been a unique situation. All right. Promotions. We'll start with Braden Montgomery because that's the big name, and then we'll talk about some of the other ones. But we knew this was coming, right? Like this was kind of bound to happen for a while. Braden Montgomery's just way too good to be in high A. It's just he's an elite talent. What did you make of the amount of time he spent in Canny? Did it feel appropriate? Did it feel too quick? I think it was about right to me.
I think his minor league career has gone exactly how I expected to this point. Start in low A, get a taste of minor league baseball, and then he absolutely raked there and is moving up the system as he should. Because compared to other 2024 draft picks, he's on a similar timeline in terms of games played. Because, you get drafted in 2024, you spend about 2-3 weeks in limbo, and then you get sent out to a site. But at the end of last year, Braden Montgomery was hurt, couldn't play. So this was his first taste of minor league baseball, and he looked absolutely phenomenal in that loaded Kannapolis lineup. And I think that he could rise even higher among the ranks because it's Braden Montgomery, and he's one of my favorite prospects in the system. He could be up in Birmingham, maybe even Charlotte by the end of the year. Who knows? We don't really
Charlotte would be crazy. I think it's Birmingham probably. I think he spends the second half in Birmingham. I think it's kind of like a lot of the trajectory with the Sox where they've had a whole second half of guys that reach Birmingham and then they get their whole, true second half in one place, right? Where he can just get in his groove in Birmingham, assuming things go well in Winston. I think we'll see more of the same in Winston, honestly. I really don't think it's going to be a big jump for him. I think he's prepared to see that level of pitching. He's seen that level of pitching before in the SEC, and I think that he's going to, maybe it's not quite as quick of a promotion. I think he probably spends a little more time in Winston than he did in Kannapolis, but I don't think he's there for all that long. Is what
I would be shocked if he's there farther than mid-July. I think around
July.
the All-Star break.
That was exactly my gauge is July or so. I think is when he would be heading to Birmingham at some point. It could be sooner if he just completely tears it up. But I think you don't need to rush it. But at the same time, if he's doing well in a month or two, let's see it in Birmingham. Honestly,
I'm kind of on the train of if he's ready, bring him up opening day 2026. Have him be
Ooh,
the PPI
see,
the
it's
PPI pick.
funny. Sean
I'm
Sean
on that
Anderson
train.
of I
I
was on
love him for this pick.
CHGO earlier today, and Sean Anderson said the same thing. He said, "Is there a chance he makes the opening day roster in 2026?" I lean no. I just don't. I think you've got more of a
I
chance from
don't think
Schultz or
so.
Hagen
Yeah.
to make that PPI pick, and I think both those guys are kind of borderline expected to make the 2026 roster.
Hmm.
But I think with Braden, like we'll see, right? Like there's a chance he
Yeah.
just dominates Double A at the second half of the season, and they say screw it, skip Charlotte, like whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe I think it's a little eager. I think I'd rather take our time, see what happens. He'll be up at some point next season, I think. I just
Yeah.
think it's, more realistically second half of next year. And then you go into 2027 with him as, hopefully a key piece of your lineup if things go well from there. So
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. But good to see him in Winston. It's overdue for sure.
Yeah.
Not overdue, but ready. He was definitely ready. And then a
100%.
couple other ones to mention, a handful of guys heading to Birmingham, a trio of guys all heading to Birmingham. Ryan Galaney, the FutureSox interview
Look
luck
at that.
continues. Look
Look
at
at
that
that.
happening. We had Galaney on last week, so for everyone listening, definitely check out that interview. Ryan Galaney is a great interview. He's a great dude.
Yep.
Just someone that's easy to root for sure, and a development, for the White Sox that the more late round picks the White Sox see success from and continue to go through the system, the better from an organizational standpoint, right? Like these guys, even if they don't become huge big league pieces, any 13th round pick developing and showing clear promise at the lower levels and getting into Double A as a legit performer is a great organizational sign. And Galaney, in addition to Caden Connor, also getting up to Birmingham, are two excellent examples of that from this 2023 draft class. Smaller schools, smaller conference guys, impressive hitters as a whole, had good college careers, but they get to Canny, they breeze through Canny, they get to Winston. They both had some ups and downs in Winston for sure last year. And then this year, they look strong enough in Winston where it's like, let's go, let's make that jump to Birmingham and let's see what these 24-year-olds can do when they reach that key difference between high A and Double A.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head right there because, like you said, smaller school guys, you're not 100% sure what you're going to get out of them because they're not facing the top end competition that guys in the SEC would. But I
Right.
mean, Galaney was set to transfer to Tennessee. We talked about that during his interview on Thursday, and he just has done nothing but hit. Like I'm not sure what he was like. I'm not sure what he was doing in the 13th round. I get that smaller school, like senior, but he just mashes. Like I'm very happy that he's progressed the way he has because he was one of my favorite picks on day 3 of the 2023 draft, and I love to be right, and Ryan Galaney has proven me right so far.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because I
Yeah.
remember seeing this and I talked to Caden at the beginning of the season and said, "Hey, looks like congrats on heading to Birmingham, whatever." And then he was heading there and then wasn't. So
Hmm.
interesting little note. I think it was just a roster situation where they didn't have room, maybe. So then they moved him
Yeah.
back to Winston where they needed more outfield in Winston because without Braden or McClain or Sauki there, I think they needed some outfield guys in Winston. And then now it's just like, all right, let's he's ready. And then obviously Braden Montgomery going to Winston clears that spot with Caden Connor in the outfield. So then he heads to Birmingham. It makes sense. Shane Murphy as well heading to Birmingham. Shane's a guy who's bounced around a little between the levels last year. Actually had some weird one appearance in Charlotte last year for whatever reason. Yeah, I guess this is actually
Oh
probably the
boy.
reason, to be honest, that Caden Connor wasn't in Birmingham. That probably is part of the reason
Yeah.
actually. And says Oscar Colas was needed a spot, which he did need a spot in Birmingham. So interesting note. But regardless, Shane Murphy also heads to Birmingham. So those three guys head up to Birmingham. Birmingham's been pretty fun to watch, despite a lineup that is, a little lackluster compared to some of the different lineups in the organization. But with that said, now you had Galaney, you had Connor. It's a pretty fun team overall. Obviously, you've got the trio of pitchers, and then one pitcher leaves Birmingham with Wakelman Gonzalez heading to Charlotte. That's an interesting one for me. Gonzalez, a guy who has been in Double A now since mid 2023, so he spent parts of 3 seasons in Double A. So from the experience in Double A aspect, I get it, but it's not like he's really been tearing up Double A. Do you think this is more a product of Charlotte needing pitching or more a product of let's push Gonzalez a little, see if he could be a big league piece sooner than later?
I think it's a combination of both
Yeah,
because Gonzalez wasn't like great, but he wasn't awful either. Like it's not to say
right.
that he wasn't exactly like a Noah Schultz, Grant Taylor, Hagen Smith type where they're going out and dominating every 5th day. But Wickelman was very solid in Double A for the entire time he was there. And if they think he's ready for Charlotte, I'm not going to be the one to say no, he's not ready. But the Charlotte lineup or the Charlotte rotation did need pitching, and if there was one to go up, I would have assumed it was Gowans over him. But if they think Wickelman's the right guy for it, I'm not mad at it. But I would have assumed that if there was a guy to go up before him in terms of like, okay, the Charlotte rotation needs an arm, I would have assumed it was Gowans.
Yeah, I would have thought it was Gowan's first too. I think with Kelman, it's almost a kind of yeah. I mean, I think this is where I was just going. Ian just said he
Yeah.
has reliever written all over him. I agree. I think the interesting thing about him being in Charlotte is you can kind of mix and match. You can give him the opportunity to make starts, but they could test out piggybacking him in a long relief role. They could try him out in different situations. They're still going to let him start for now in Charlotte because they need innings there, I think. But I do think it gives a little more flexibility where if he's already at the AAA level, if the command doesn't tick up, you can say, okay, we're just going to give this guy some bullpen games and then bring him to Chicago. Even if it's not, if they want to maybe consider starting long term, maybe you bring him to Chicago quicker as a reliever. I still see Gonzalez as a reliever. I've thought that since the trade. I thought that when they made the trade when he was the fourth piece of that Crochet deal. So I've always kind of seen him as a reliever. But I think him being in Charlotte makes it a little more justifiable maybe to put him in the bullpen if they want to at some point in the near future.
I don't think that a bullpen role like later on in the year is out of the question for him either
Yeah.
because he's already on the 40 man. And with the
Right.
opener thing that the White
Yep.
Sox have been doing the last three, I think 4 games now. Tomorrow, I think Tyler Gilbert is starting another game. It's his third of the last 4 games.
Yeah, it's
But
interesting.
if they want him to be like that opener guy, but he just goes like 2 innings, like, okay. I mean, I would be fine if he shifts to the bullpen because he's got stuff that would tick up in the bullpen. But
Yep.
yeah, if they think that he's ready for a
Yeah.
sort of like Jairo Iriarte role from last year, I know
Well,
Jairo wasn't
yeah.
great, but yeah, I'll be fine with it.
What do you okay, not to pivot too much, but like what do you make of Hyro? Because where I'm at with him is like I think he needs like a Phantom IL stint. I don't know what's
Yeah,
going on. It's the whole thing with him has always been, oh, the stuff is good enough where he can be a reliever if the command doesn't come along. The stuff hasn't been that good. That's
no,
the issue with Hyro is the stuff isn't even where it used to be and where it was in 2023. So with him, I don't know. I think he needs a few weeks off, maybe, or
yeah.
just transition back into a bullpen role, maybe in Charlotte just for a little bit to see what that looks like. I'm not sure what it needs to happen there, but something needs to be adjusted with Iriarte in the near future if he's still going to be part of this big future.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same way, but like he thinks. I mean, I don't want to say that like he thinks he's a starter, so let's keep him as a starter because I don't know what he thinks. But
Yeah,
like the velocity has ticked down since he got traded here. Like he was consistently 95 to 97 with the Padres, and then comes over and is like struggling to hit 95. So I don't know.
right.
It's been rough for Hyro, but hopefully he gets back on
Yeah.
track because when he's right, his stuff is pretty good.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that one. I'm curious to see the way it plays out. I think I'm hoping for the best there with him. The last guy to mention in terms of promotions, real quick, and then we'll get into our April team of the month. Abraham Nunez is a Arizona Complex guy, a 19-year-old outfielder, Dominican Republic, who is now making his way to Kannapolis for his affiliated debut. This is a guy who's been pretty good over the past couple of years. A DCL season in 2023 with an 896 or 869 OPS, stole some bags, pretty good approach. Last year in the Arizona Complex League, 53 games, 753 OPS, handful of 20 stolen bases in that time. Not a ton of power, but a young outfielder who will now join that group and obviously take Braden Montgomery's spot in that outfield. Will still probably be a fourth outfielder clearly because I think Nathan Archer has earned the right to have more innings in that outfield. So I think the outfield will be primarily McLean, Archer, and George Walkow. But now Abraham Nunez will fill that last outfield spot in Kannapolis.
Yeah, Nunez is another teenage prospect to watch in Kannapolis. I think that's up to 5 now. You got
Yeah,
Reyes,
it's a good
Walco,
one.
Bonnemer, Mogollon, and now
Close.
him.
Mogollon, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think
So
Roni still 19? Roni might be 20 now,
he
but
might be 20.
I think he's 20 now. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
But
Anyways, it's a young team,
yeah,
and there's
for
there's a
sure.
lot of up arrow prospects in Kannapolis, and it could be really fun because young prospects performing well against older, more experienced pitching is always a good sign.
Definitely another good guy to watch. Some swing changes supposedly. Ian says for Nunez as well, so that'll be fun to check it out. I really haven't seen much on Nunez. It's hard for
Yeah.
me at least to get footage of the complex leagues, but a guy that we'll be keeping an eye on and seeing his debut in Candy this week, I assume. Heading to our all MILB team, April was fun. April was fun. He's good to get into things. Obviously, some performances, some positions trumping others. I think in the system, I think there's a handful of positions where you see a lot of strengths. There's a handful of positions where you see some weakness for sure. But I do think that there's plenty of guys who haven't been their best yet that will continue to get better, and there's also plenty of guys that came out of the gate firing, and we're going to talk about those guys that we've been talking about them for a few weeks probably because they've been the top performers consistently. But now we'll really break it down. Let's start in the offensive side, and we'll work our way around the diamond. Sound good?
Oh, that works.
Cool. Catcher, I mean, the obvious answer is Edgar Caro, but I only
Yeah.
included guys who are still in the minor leagues for this purpose. Edgar Caro would have been the choice here, but ultimately we went with Michael Turner and then Jackson Appel as the two catchers. I'm excited to see more Michael Turner now that the roster crunch has cleared up a little bit. Omar Narvaez was getting those catching innings in Birmingham. Now Turner's starting to get more innings. He's still splitting time with Adam Hackenberg. I mean, Michael Turner for a platoon catcher almost the past 2 years, just because of the depth in the system, has been really good. Like he's been consistently good, and all reports are from everybody else that he's a really solid defender too, as an experienced SEC guy. I think it's interesting to see what is going to make of him. He's obviously going to be in Birmingham for now because you've got Kyle Teal in AAA who doesn't quite crack this thing. He's been solid, but definitely has had some ups and downs offensively. Michael Turner is just a consistent, great guy to have in the organization, in my opinion, from a catching standpoint, even if he's not necessarily a projectable big leaguer.
Yeah, he's experienced catcher from Ole Miss. He was on that 2022 title team, I believe,
And then
with
Arkansas,
Jacob Gonzalez.
he transferred, right?
Yeah. But he was teammates with Jacob Gonzalez. We'll get into Tim Elko in a bit here. But yeah, Michael Turner, if he ends up being like that organizational catcher, I'm fine with that because, like you were saying, everybody seems to love throwing to him. Seems like a great guy, and if he can end up being a third catcher, backup catcher in the big leagues, that would be perfect because he was a 5th round pick, I believe. I could be wrong.
Oh no, Turner was an older guy. Appel was a 5th rounder. That's what you're thinking of.
Appel,
Turner
yeah.
was, I believe, a 12th rounder. I want to say.
I'm thinking of Calvin Harris. Calvin Harris.
Yeah, you are thinking of Calvin Harris. Yeah. Turner's Arkansas, and Turner was a 9th rounder in 22, and then Appel, who we're going to talk about, was 5th last year. But yeah,
there we go. Yeah.
But solid catching depth. And then Jackson Appel is the other guy who, is not numbers popping off the page or anything, but Appel in his first, stint of high A, only 23 years old for a guy who's a 5th-year college guy, but is still on the younger side of those older college guys. Drafted last year in the 6th round, an underslot senior signing type of guy, but at the same time has been pretty solid in high A. He walks a good amount, pretty good plate approach, and by all means seems like he's a very quality defender. And again, organizational catchers that are good at defense and can work with pitchers well is always a good thing to have.
Yes. Yeah. Organizational depth and working with the young, like sort of still need polish pitchers. That's what you draft catchers for, because especially ones that are from the SEC, they've worked with a lot of raw pitchers who have great stuff and just don't know where it's going and don't know how to sequence. Working with those guys will turn those pitchers into what we think they can be. And if Appel or Turner can become organizational depth at catcher, perfect, because there's a lot of arms that are lower in the system that have great stuff, but they just need some more polish to be fully like prospect, like a premier prospect in the White Sox system.
Right, completely. Going over to first base, this is where we got some mashers. We got mashers. We just talked about Ryan Glaney. If you want to hear more Ryan Glaney talk, he's one of the two here, but go listen to our interview with him. Great guy. He's heading to Birmingham. We kind of covered that one. Tim Elko, that's the story of the week. And as much as I love Tim Elko, I'm a little bit sick of people asking me about him because it's been the question of everybody's mind the past week. With that said, dude has gone absolutely berserk lately. At what point do you break it down for me, Dylan? Explain what Tim Elko's been doing and what you think the situation is with him.
Tim Elko has hit 8 home runs in April and has 10 overall on the season. Nobody else in the entire minor leagues has 8. That's just unreal. Like, Tim Elko has an 1160 OPS, or had an 1160 OPS in April. And I just don't know what else he needs to do to get promoted to the big leagues, because he's doing damage on sliders and off speed pitches that he wasn't doing last year. He is chasing less, he's making more contact. And exactly, Vaughn being this bad is sort of a kick in the face to all the fans who are like, why aren't we good? Because you have this sitting literally one level below you. And you're just like, yeah, we'll stick it out with Vaughn. It's the sunk cost fallacy of, well, he was a high draft pick, so there must be something left in the tank, even though there's not.
Yeah, part of me wants to completely agree with you, and we've gone back and forth on this before, and I think Elko obviously deserves it. I mean, to recap what you were just saying there, right? Like he's hitting 350 so far this season, 20 RBIs, 1164 OPS. Like he's been one of, if not the best hitter in minor league baseball. With that comes 27 strikeouts in 23 games. That is a high strikeout rate. He's still maintaining a near 30% strikeout rate, which generally speaking, it is hard to have big league success when you're running a strikeout rate above 25 or so in the minors, right? Like most guys who run a strikeout rate 25 plus in the minor leagues struggle at the big league level with whiffing too much and chasing too much. But Elko, the walk rate's up. That's one thing that is a big development for him, right? The walk rate is up from, I believe, around 5% last year to somewhere in the 7-8% range right now, which is different, right? That is a jump for sure. Elko actually with an 11% walk rate actually so far this season in Charlotte. So that's a big jump. He's never run a walk rate in the double digits or even close to the double digits really at this level compared to his past few seasons, right? So I do think that for him now, that is a big leap to see him walking more. If you're going to strike out a lot, you've got to walk more. And Elko has done that so far, to his credit. The power is unreal. Obviously, we know that for the level he's mashing. I'm ready to see it, but I also don't think the White Sox are moving on from Andrew Vaughn. And to Andrew Vaughn's credit, as bad as he's been in terms of results, right? He's running an 86th percentile hard hit rate. He's running an 88th percentile barrel rate. I get it. He's running a 70% whiff rate. So for Andrew Vaughn, a guy who used to whiff even more, actually is whiffing a lot less this season marginally compared to the past few seasons. Yes, it still has been bad. I understand. But I think the White Sox are still going to hold on to Vaughn for a little bit. My thing is like, why not give Elko at bats a DH and first base in a platoon situation? Right? Like, even if you're going to hold on to Elko, who in the world is taking DH at bats at this point from Tim Elko? If it's not like if you still want Andrew Vaughn in your lineup, you can have Tim Elko in this lineup too. That's the thing where I'm like, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to get 3 days a week at first base and 3 days a week at DH right now and call it a day, right?
Yeah. And the Gage Workman trade with the Cubs, that just felt like a massive massive middle finger to Tim Elko, because Tim Elko is exactly, or I don't want to say exactly what Gage Workman is, because Workman can play third, but if you're looking for a corner infielder, you have one waiting in the wings. So I don't know. It just doesn't feel right, because you've got hitters like Joshua Palacios and Gage Workman on the 26-man roster, but then you have Tim Elko and his 1160 OPS just wasting away in Charlotte.
Yeah, it's time soon. It's got to be time soon. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see if we could get him on the show. Maybe that might be what needs to happen. I know somebody mentioned that earlier. This is can you get Elko on the show? So we may have to make that happen. We'll see what happens. But I'm ready to see it too. I agree with you on that. He is our first baseman of the month. Obviously, he is the hitter of the month in the entire system. I don't think that's really a question at this point. Second base. Also really fun, man. This infield in general, there's a lot of fun guys to talk about here.
Very fun.
So I did this when I was doing the infield. I was doing it on the most games played at a position, right? Because a lot of these guys are moving around. In the minors especially, we've talked about this. The middle infield is kind of a mixture of guys. There's a lot of guys switching off between short and second. There's guys that are switching off between short and third as well, between various guys. But in terms of guys that have primarily played more games than not at second base, it was Joel Perez and Javier Moquillon. Two really young, exciting guys. Perez being, the 20 years old in high A, and he's playing mostly second base in high A. And then Javier Mogollon being, 19 years old in single A. Really fun duo second baseman here, man. Tell me about what Perez is doing. Let's start there, because he, on the last week or two particularly, has been going off.
I mean, Perez, I believe he leads the South Atlantic League in homers. And for a second baseman who's shorter in stature, I believe he's 5'10",
maybe.
around there on a good day. But yeah, for a 5'10" second baseman to be leading the South Atlantic League in homers, that's you take that every day of the week. And a lot of people were sort of like, oh, the Vargas was the only notable name in that Fedde Kopech fam deal. Gerald Perez is making a claim for himself to be I don't want to say the headliner, but sort of like a notable piece from that deal,
Right.
because he looks like he's a name to watch in the system. If I had to re-rank prospects today, I think he would pretty comfortably be inside my top 15, if not higher.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the power is no, he's always been a power guy. So someone in the comments just asked, is the power part of his unexpected or part of his game? That was the calling card for him as a small guy who can really pull side power and really taps into his power better than his stature may suggest. I think that with Perez is the calling card because he is gonna strike out a good amount. He struck out a good amount last year. He struck out a good amount this year too, 27 strikeouts in 20 games. But he takes his walks and he really juices the ball. I mean, 11 extra base hits in 20 at bats, and they're hard extra bases. It's not just soft liners. His homers have been 106 off the bat, 109 off the bat, line drive shots. It's hard pull side power, and a guy that finds his pitches and hunts them and is able to hit them very hard. It's last year the power didn't quite come along when he came over to the organization, right? He played 30 games last year in Canny, 2 home runs, but the power is there. The power is definitely there. That he's been a guy in his career so far that has shown power in the past couple of years for his size. Right, he's not a 30 homer guy, but he is realistically he could be a 15 homer guy with consistent doubles as well. 25 doubles last season. Hopefully a good amount of walks. Right, 62 walks last year, and already 11 walks so far this season in his first 20 games of the season. So a really good start for Perez, and something especially at high A. Like he's 20, right? Like this is not a guy who's 24 and just getting to high A. Right, he's 20 years old. He just spent last year in single A, and then this year he spent all of last year in single A between the two organizations after the trade, and has continued to look very good this year and look adjusted already to high A.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like he's having to make a hard aggressive jump. Like he looks comfortable at the level already.
Right. And then
Mogollon. Mogollon.
Essentially,
take it away.
Yeah, the more time I can spend talking about Javier Mogollon, the better, because
I know.
in every way that Gerald Perez is that undersized second baseman with a power speed combo, Mogollon is that on steroids. Not literally, but he's an even shorter second baseman with just about the same amount of power, if not more, and can take bases like nobody's business. In 84 plate appearances, he has 2 bombs, which for a 19-year-old in his first taste of affiliate ball is more than fine. He had an 884 OPS in April. And the key thing that I want to mention with Mogollon is that not only is he walking a lot, he only has 5 more strikeouts than walks. And strikeouts were the key thing for him last year in the ACL. He was struggling. He had a K rate near, I think it was like over 30. It might have been close to 40.
Yeah, it was high.
But
it was high.
Yeah, it was really high. And some people thought that the assignment to Kannapolis was aggressive. I just wanted to see it. I wanted to see how he would play in affiliate ball, and he's proven that he was ready for it. I don't know if the swing tweak has helped because he added a leg kick in the middle of the ACL season last year, but he looks really good, and I'm really excited to see him and Caleb Bonham continue to gel as that middle infield combo in Kannapolis.
Yeah, totally. So for perspective on his swing rates, like he came up in 2023 in the DSL at a 13% walk rate, a 14% strikeout rate. So that was like, okay, this guy, at least in the DSL, is hitting for power. He's stealing bases. He's not striking out, and he's walking. Last year in the ACL, the walk rate ticks up to 18%, but the strikeout rate ticks up to 38%. So it was even higher than we thought there, right?
Yeah.
So coming into this year, it's like, okay, this guy's got fun tools. He's got power. He's got speed, but he's whiffing all the time. Yeah. So far this season, at the next level up, it's a 19% walk rate and a 25% strikeout rate. Obviously, small sample rate, of course. If he can keep that strikeout rate around the 25% mark and he can continue to walk, continue to steal bags, and continue to show that power, you're looking at a top 20 prospect in the system, I think, pretty clearly. So exciting to see. A unique profile, of course, for a guy that's 5'7" maybe, but definitely a guy to keep an eye on as another second baseman. Heading over to shortstop. another like this infield has been there's some really fun infield prospects, I think, and we'll talk about it. The outfield is definitely more lackluster in comparison to these infielders we're going to talk about. But like shortstop, it's pretty clearly Caleb Bonham and William Bergoya. Caleb Bonham being in Single A Kannapolis, and then William Bergoya at 20 years old being the primary shortstop in Double A, and that's one thing that we didn't know. Let's start with Bergoya at the higher level. I think that I at least thought, given Bergoya's size and given the two pedigrees, that Bergoya would be playing mostly second, with Jacob Gonzalez playing mostly short. William Bergoya has played 14 games at shortstop already in Double A, Dylan, and he is the primary shortstop there. Does William Bergoya stick at shortstop? Is there a chance? We've talked about this before, that he's been that guy that could maybe, but at the same time, there's a lot of guys in the system who are primarily shortstops, but probably second baseman. Where are you at
Yeah.
with Bergoya in that regard?
I think that he has the glove to be the guy to stick at short out of any of the guys that sort of fit in that category that you mentioned, like the undersized shortstop where they're like, all right, you're a shortstop for now, but as you continue to move up, you're going to shift to second long term. But Bergoya has a great glove. Like that's the one thing that he was, or one of the two things that he was touted on when he came over from the Phillies. It was contact and it was defense. Those two things were his calling card. And Jacob Gonzalez is not a slouch at shortstop. Like he played on Team USA. He was the shortstop for Ole Miss when they won their national title. I know that you're shaking your head,
Yeah.
but
No,
he,
I know. Go
he's
ahead. Go. Take it away.
he's not
Yeah.
a terrible shortstop.
Yeah.
But Bergoya being the everyday shortstop shows that like the organization believes he can stick there. And for him to be playing over a first round draft pick, no matter how bad he's been, for him to be playing shortstop
Yeah.
over a first round pick is telling that the organization at least thinks for now that he can be a shortstop, and especially as he moves up, we'll see. But for right now, it's Double A is not like the lower levels, but it's
Right.
good to see.
And a slower last like day or two for Bergoya that's brought the number down slightly, but 313 average, a 764 OPS, right? Like good Bergoya, it's contact and he doesn't whiff like much at all, right? That's one thing that I really like. He's 17 games, 7 walks, 9 strikeouts, but 11 stolen bases once he gets on base. You're never going to see power from Bergoya, I don't think. I mean, one career home run in the minor leagues,
Yeah,
but at the same time, like if you're going to be a guy that doesn't have impact power wise, you have to get on base. You have to not chase a ton, and you've got to be, have the speed to be an impactful runner once you're on the bases. Bergoya checks those boxes, man. He really does. Watching him play, he's got a quick swing. He makes good contact consistently. He doesn't whiff a ton. And when he gets on base, the dude is fast. 27 steals last year, 11 already this season, 11 already in 17 games. Like he's on
yeah,
pace for like 50 steals, and I don't think he'll get to 50 steals, but like this could be a 30, 40 stolen base guy. And then you're looking at plus contact and plus speed, which if that sticks at shortstop, it looks really good. Even if it moves to second base, though, it's still a big league upside type of guy.
yeah. He is second in the White Sox organization in stolen bases over the month of April. Quick
Yeah.
shout out, by the way, to Jordan Sprinkle,
We're
who
going to get
already
to him
has.
too.
Yeah, okay. I didn't even see, we have him on the list.
Oh yeah, he's on
Oh,
the list.
I must have completely missed him then.
He made the list, man. We'll
Perfect.
get there.
But yeah,
um, yeah,
Bergoya, he's doesn't have like the over the fence power, but he has more than enough like gap to gap power where you
yeah,
can
for sure,
just stick a ball in the left center, right center gap and just run for days. He did hit a
totally.
ball 111 miles an hour in spring training, which was nice to see. I did not know that he had that in the
I
tank.
didn't think he had that in the tank either. So
Yeah. But if he can consistently, like, I don't want to say consistently hit balls like 106, but like if he can consistently hit balls like even 95 plus, like that's more than fine for a player of his archetype.
Yeah, completely. Caleb Bonham, we got a good question that I want to get to, but first of all, I'm just going to go through his
Yeah.
numbers. I don't think we need to do much more than go through his numbers here. Caleb Bonham is 19 years old. This is his first 18 professional affiliated games. Slash line of 313, 446, 516. That's good for a 962 OPS. 9 extra base hits in those 18 games, 12 walks to 15 strikeouts, and 7 stolen bases for Bonham. Is it fair to say, and this is maybe putting too much on him, but like, has Caleb Bonham shown 5-tool upside? Not saying he is a 5-tool player, but has he shown enough to make you think that he could at some point be at least average at every tool on the field?
I would say average, if not better, at all of the tools. I think the one tool that he's sort of behind in is defense because, he's a bigger guy. He's probably going to move off short, but I mean, his offensive skills are absurd for a 19-year-old.
And he had some questions around his hit tool coming into
Yeah,
the draft last year. I think that was the thing when I've talked to people I know in the college world, like he's been considered, a guy who was gonna have power, could figure out the swing with time, but the contact skills are already better than I expected out of the gate for
100%.
sure. And the approach looks very good. He's taking pitches. He's not whiffing a ton. I mean, 15 strikeouts. Typically, a guy this young and in his first stint would be striking out more than he is. I think that Caleb Bonnemer has done everything he needs to do to already show that he's a top 10 prospect in the system. And upon a couple graduations, like he could be a borderline top 5 guy in the system, to be honest, sooner than later.
There's a hot take in my top 30 prospects that that for FutureSox that I wrote. If Caleb Bonnemer checks all the boxes in this year and some graduations happen above him, I think he very, very well could be the number one prospect in the White Sox system in 2026.
There's a world, man. When he had that game, what was it? So this was like 2 weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, when he had the game where he went, he went like 4 for 5 or 5 for 5
Yeah.
or something ridiculous with a home. Like that was the game where he just went off.
Mhm.
Dylan and I, for those listening, we're in a dynasty fantasy league together, and the second that game happened, I put a bid in for him because I was like, I'm not letting Dylan steal him from me. So
Yeah.
that was my immediate grab in our dynasty league was grabbing Caleb Bonnemer because I don't care how young he is and I don't care how long it's going to be until he reaches the big leagues. If Caleb Bonnemer hits the upside that we think he could, I need him on my dynasty team. That has to happen.
And I took Grant Taylor from Elijah
You
last
did take
year.
Grant Taylor from me last year.
Yeah.
That's true. We're even now. You've got Grant Taylor. I've got Caleb Bonnemer. We even out in that regard for sure.
Yep.
But Bonnemer's great. So this is the question. This is from Robert. Appreciate you always asking questions, Robert. He said something about the Baseball America podcast, making a comparison between Caleb Bonnemer and Gunnar Henderson. I did not listen to that podcast yet, but that's
awesome.
A crazy comparison. That's awesome.
That's
that
awesome.
He's getting that type of love. They also mentioned that he could be a top 100 candidate in the June re-ranking. I mean, yes to the top 100 thing. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think the way he's performing at his age, with being a second-round draft pick, an over-slotted high school pick, and already showing this much, that is very possible. Gunnar Henderson might be a little ambitious. I'm not sure I would put a Gunnar Henderson label on him. But, I mean, Dylan put an Austin Riley label on him, so maybe that one's more...
Defending myself, it wasn't like directly comparing him to Austin Riley. It was transitive property, so I'm not gonna do that. But Gunnar Henderson, if they want to call him Gunnar Henderson, fine by me, because I mean we've seen Gunnar Henderson put up like what, an 8-WAR season last year, something like that.
Yeah,
so
pretty ridiculous. Gunnar Henderson, I think, realistically, I think Gunnar Henderson is probably more of a shortstop, probably than Caleb will be. I think Caleb Bonnemer's already playing some third base. He's playing both. He's played more shortstop than third, and he's looked good at short to me. But at the same time, probably not Gunnar. This is Ian said, it's probably more for his body type. Probably true. But regardless of exactly what the comparison you want to put on him, this guy looks great. And he's been, aside from Elko, probably one of the better hitters in this system so far to start the season. Great April from Bonnemer. Can't wait to see more from him. Third base, like I mentioned, we were going to get to one of these guys. Sam Antonacci has actually technically played more third than shortstop. So I went with Antonacci here because I was doing it by the most games played at a given position. Antonacci is splitting time between short and third in Winston-Salem, a little bit of second as well, but has played more third than anywhere else so far. So Antonacci is the third baseman, and then Jordan Sprinkle is the other one who I got in there because Sprinkle, a 2022 draft pick. I've seen Jordan Sprinkle play went to the same college as him, so I've seen him play for a number of years now, a long time. This is, going back a bit. Ian just said this. I've been saying this for weeks. I sent this to you, Dylan, but Caleb Bonnemer's swing. Yeah, it is Mike Trout-esque. I know it's not Mike Trout, but his movement style and his pattern, especially his finish too, has a very Trout quickness to the swing. Interesting.
And even his setup, like both of their setups are very like stiff. There's not much movement going on, and then
simple,
boom,
simple for sure. And the finish is kind of similar as well. Sam Antonacci and Jordan Sprinkle. Sam Antonacci is in Winston-Salem already. Jordan Sprinkle was in Winston last year, starts the year in Canny to kind of build up his confidence a little, and then makes his way got promoted as well this week. I should have mentioned another promotion of a guy heading to Winston. So both these guys in Winston now, our third baseman of the month. What is it? More of the same from Antonacci? Like we've talked about him plenty of times. I don't think we need to get too deep into him. Like It's good contact. It's plus approach. He still hasn't really been his best yet. I feel like he's been
Yeah.
good, but he still has more to show. And his version of not being necessarily his best is already an 800 OPS or something in his first
Yeah.
stint of an 860 OPS in his first stint of a high A ball, and that's because
Yeah.
16 walks across 20 games and then 10 stolen bases once he gets on base too. We love Antonacci. We've been on Antonacci since the draft. That's the guy that we have high hopes for. Sprinkle, what's going on there? Because this is a guy who was 2022, right? Like I said, I've been seeing this guy play for a long time. The swing didn't look right last year at a lot
Yeah.
of points, and then this year he kind of regroups. He's in single A. I still think we need to see it at the next level. But you mentioned his speed earlier
20
too, right?
bags. 20 stolen bases in a month. That's almost unheard of. I know Chandler Simpson just got called up, so there could be a new minor league stolen base king, and his name might be Jordan Sprinkle. We don't know. But I mean, 20 bags in a month is nothing to slouch at. And it's not like he's doing bad at the plate either. Like, you got to get on base to steal 20 bags. Jordan Sprinkle's hitting 420. I did
Yeah, that's
not
pretty
realize
crazy.
that. I did not
Yeah,
realize that he led all of qualified White Sox minor leaguers in batting average for the month of April. That
yeah,
was crazy for me to find out, because the next highest is Michael Turner at 370. So like 50 points higher in batting average was just crazy. But I mean, Jordan
yeah.
Sprinkle, like you said, he just didn't look right last year and needed something to fall into place for him. And so far, it seems like something has. And if he can
Yeah.
be a speedy third baseman, perfect.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with Sprinkle. This is a guy who was glove first and speed first throughout college. The hit tool's always been questionable. He looks good to start the year, and we'll see what it progresses once he reaches the next level. But I'm looking forward to it. This is a guy who I'm most cheering for my Santa Barbara alum, my Gauchos. So I'm hoping things continue to trend the right direction for Sprinkle now that he's in Winston Salem. Heading to the outfield. This is where we had a little trouble putting together the everything. To be honest,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of outfielders in the system who were pretty not much going on this start of the year, right? I think obviously Braden Montgomery. We talked about Braden Montgomery off the top. We don't need to dive too deeply into Braden Montgomery. He's been the best outfielder in the system. He's obviously the top outfield prospect in the system. I don't think that's even a question, right? Like
Yeah.
Casey Salke gets Tommy John surgery. It's funny, weird to get Tommy John surgery as an outfielder, but we knew he had an arm issue. So
Yeah.
Salke's going to be out for the year now. He was in Kannapolis. So Braden going to Winston, right? Who are some of the other outfielders aside from Braden Montgomery that, while nobody else really stood out, some of the outfielders that were impressive?
Nathan Archer, he was a guy that was sort of unheralded coming into this year. I believe, he was a day 3 pick last year out of Bowling Green,
Yeah, 12th
and
rounder. Yeah.
yeah, won his conference's Player of the Year in his draft year. So it's always good to get a Player of the Year in whatever conference it may be in day 3. But Nathan Archer in the month of April batted 290 and had an 821 OPS. So for a day 3 pick, that's more than fine. One thing I will mention is that Archer is striking out a bit more than you would like. 19 strikeouts to only 7 walks. But he's if he can be that sort of fourth, fifth, or not even fifth outfielder, but like fourth outfielder, even rotational guy for Kannapolis, and as he moves up, that's more than fine for a day 3 pick.
Yeah, and like Kerry just mentioned here in the comments, he's been coming up big in some big
Yeah,
situations for sure. He's definitely had some clutch hits for that team in Canny, and has been a big piece of that lineup really starting to take off. And now that Braden Montgomery goes up, he'll be an everyday player there. So I think that
100%.
he will get those a lot of center field innings too. Actually, with
Hmm.
McLean and Walkout being more corner guys, I think they're still trying to get Nick McLean some center field work, but I think Archer will be the primary center fielder in Kannapolis now, which will be fun to see more innings from him because it's been pretty good. It's been plus speed, pretty good contact overall, not a ton of power, but he's shown some juice, right? So another guy we'll keep an eye on. Another pick from last year, who I think was a guy that I probably maybe the least on my radar guy of almost all the draft picks last year, fifth-year senior signing Cole McConnell out of Louisiana Tech, is a guy who he got put in Winston because he was one of the. I just think it's more of an age thing more than anything. I think they needed another outfielder in Winston. They were trying to give Montgomery a little bit of time in Canny to just get settled in. So then Cole McConnell starts in Winston, and he's been a rotational guy. He hasn't played every day, but in 13 games, 780 OPS, he's getting on base at a 438 clip. Has shown some pretty good contact overall. So Cole McConnell, again, more of a depth guy probably in the organization, but has started the season strong, and it's always good to see these recent draft picks start good.
Yeah, McConnell is. I think he was the 10th round pick out of Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
But yeah, McConnell looks great so far. He batted 289 in April, 4 bags, more than fine. Still waiting on his first professional homer, but he's not. He's was never going to be the type of guy to hit Tim Elko type home runs in a month. But yeah, if he can be sort of that prototypical center left fielder for Winston, and even as he moves up to Birmingham, because Birmingham's outfield is up in the air. But yeah, McConnell looks great so far this year, and it's pretty similar to Archer, where a lot of uncertainty around day three or like day two, day three picks, and if they develop into something, then perfect. So McConnell
Yeah.
looks good.
We'll breeze through these next two. Somebody just asked about it. Wilfred Veras and Dominic Fletcher were the other two for us. Two upper minors guys. Veras being in Birmingham and Fletcher being in Charlotte right now. Wilfred Veras has looked solid. It hasn't been great. The thing with Wilfred Veras is it's kind of more of the same. My issue with him is just it's been pretty similar production now
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of years. It's been a lot of homers, a lot of doubles, a lot of extra base hits all the time, but it's 140 strikeouts last year,
Yeah.
and already at 28 strikeouts in 20 games this year. Luckily, the walks are ticking up a little. 12 walks this season compared to 12 walks, 28 strikeouts. He's stealing bases too. Like Wilfred Veras is a good player. He just whiffs a lot, man. He swings
Yeah.
and misses a lot. That's my thing with Veras. I really want to see that strikeout rate start to come down because man, he hits the ball hard and he runs
Yeah.
well and he's slowly but surely getting a little bit better in the outfield. He's not a great defender, but at the end of the day, a below average defender that whiffs and strikes out over 30% of the time is gonna be hard to continue rising. But with that said, Veras is only 22. I think people forget how young Veras is because he's been in
Yeah.
Double A for 2.5 years now. He's been in Double A since mid 2023 when he was 20 years old, but he's only
Mhm.
22. So there's still time for Veras to start
100%.
continuing to work on that swing and minimize the chase as much as possible. Dom Fletcher, what's going on? Dom Fletcher, the pitcher, that is true.
Hey,
Dom Fletcher, the pitcher, has been throwing a little bit. People say in the comments, but what's going on with Dom Fletcher?
Dom Fletcher, I did not realize this, posted a 910 OPS in Charlotte this month, which, hey, the big league club is currently rolling out Joshua Palacios as their
Yeah,
everyday leadoff left fielder, right fielder.
yeah,
I don't know.
I guess right. That is
Like,
what's happening right now.
yeah, but Dom Fletcher only struck out 12 times in the entire month of April and batted 288 with 4 homers. That seems more than fine for a guy that we didn't see a lot from last year, and apparently he's pitching now. But it
Yeah,
was funny. It was funny to see his MLB.com prospect page, because you have to tab over into batting stats now because it defaults to pitching, because you have to see, like, okay, I don't care about his one inning of work. I want to see the entire
right.
month. Yeah.
Yeah, my issue with Fletcher is, he's not even a prospect now necessarily. And
Yeah.
then Ian mentions Corey Yulks as well, who has 1,000 OPS or whatever. These aren't prospects in my mind. These are at this point, these are like mid-tier veterans, right? So they're depth
Yeah.
guys. I'm good on that front. And talking about that's fine by me. But not much to say there. I'm good moving to pitching. How about you?
I'm more than Lance, or I was going to say
Oh yes,
Lyle Miller
Tombstone,
Green.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, bench
Uh,
bat. That's who we put as our bench DH masher is
yeah.
Lyle Miller Green, who's been great in Kannapolis.
Yeah. It's been, I don't want to say it's been what I've expected from Lyle Miller Green, because he only has 1 homer. I would have thought he would have had at least a couple more by now, but he's been hitting the ball pretty hard, striking out a ton. 5 stolen bases, which is nice. Pretty much everybody on that Kannapolis lineup has like 3 or more bags, even the slower guys. I don't know what Chad Pinder is telling them once they're on the bases.
Run,
Yeah, they must like be
run.
terrified of first base or something. But yeah, LMG in April batted 278. It's a 919 OPS, so a lot of extra base hits. Did leg out a triple which he is a bigger guy. It's fun to see big guy triples, but LMG has some decent speed for a bigger guy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
It
He hits
was
the ball
not.
hard. I'm excited to see him keep going. He's an older guy. He's obviously got to do this at the higher levels to have any significant intrigue. Similarly to what Tamelka went through, I think at his age and position, of course. Pitching. Let's get into pitching. We are taking our sweet time today, but it's all good.
Oh yeah,
Rotation. We've got five guys in the rotation. We don't need to talk about the two first ones too much, I think, because we talk about them almost every week. I think every
yeah.
single time we talk about the trio in Birmingham. The first two pitchers in the rotation, Hagen Smith, Grant Taylor. Noah Schultz has also been fine. I'm not putting any bad stock in any of these guys, but a little bit better performances from Smith and Taylor so far. Both of them, all three of those guys have had uncharacteristically command. I just think
Yeah.
it's early in the season. I think they're still finding themselves. I also think umpires in AA are inconsistent. And I think honestly, like this may seem a little weird, but like I think their stuff is like too good sometimes to
Hmm.
get calls from umpires that like aren't used to seeing stuff that's that nasty sometimes. Like some of their
Hmm.
sliders where they'll go backdoor on sliders and I'll be like, that's a strike. And because
Right.
it's a backdoor slider, it like won't cut in enough where it'll get called for a strike, even if it is sometimes. Regardless of the point, Hagen Smith, some walks, right? 12, 10 walks. He had one start where he couldn't get out of the first, but 25 strikeouts in 13 and two thirds, a 2.63 ERA, only 6 hits allowed in 4 starts. Like nobody's hitting these guys. And then
Yeah.
Grant Taylor with, his 3 inning limit per start, but still in those 11 and a third innings, 14 strikeouts, 4 hits allowed, I think. Like
Yeah. One earned.
nobody's hitting these two. Like they're not getting hit at all. It's just
No.
command has just continued to be a slight issue for both of them.
Yeah. Those three in Birmingham have just they just need a bit more innings under their belt this year because like
Yeah.
it's early, like you said, and I think once we see them in like June, July, we're going to be seeing a lot
Yep.
of 4 innings, no hits, 9 Ks. I'm going to expect that or I don't want to say expect that, but I'm going to if I see that, it's going to be like, oh, okay, Hagen had a good game, or Noah Schultz is doing Noah Schultz things. So,
Right.
like you were saying with umpires, Hagen Smith had one start where he made a lot of great pitches and none of them got called, and he got yanked from the game.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's
I'm
it's
with
just
you.
it's unfortunately the game in AA, but a
Yeah.
lot of
But in
those
general,
three
the
guys look
stuff
great.
looks good. Those stuff looks
Yeah,
good for sure. I think the command will come with time and we'll be monitoring them. But those two are in our first two guys in the rotation. The next two are both in Winston-Salem. Really, really nice development so far this year from Tanner McDougal. I need
yeah,
to watch more of his starts because I haven't gotten the chance to watch quite enough of him. I only watched one of his starts in actual time, and I obviously watched the highlights from our guy Ian, who does a great job with those and helps me catch up on the pitching, which is awesome. But Tanner McDougal, man, like with him, it's always been command, right? And I think people forget how young he is. He's 22 years old. This is a guy who has been, he's been in the organization now for 4 years, which makes, goes to, oh, he's a little bit older, but he was drafted at 18 at high
hmm,
school. And this is a guy who, this year, like, it's starting to come together. It's starting to come
yeah,
together. Ian is a huge fan of Tanner. We have other people in the organization, within the White Sox organization, who have told us, keep an eye out for Tanner McDougal. Last year, he had a really rough going in Winston. He goes back down to Kannapolis, settles in a little, really started to, show a little bit more. And at the end of the season there in Canny, now it's like, okay, you're ready for Winston. He had his taste last year. He's settled in now. He gets to Winston through 5 starts this year so far, 21 and two thirds innings. So he's going longer in starts, which is great to see. A 2.08 ERA, 23 strikeouts across those innings. The walks are still really high, 16 walks in those innings, but he's working around it better than he ever used to. And the stuff is continuing to play up at a high level for McDougal.
yeah. McDougal has always been a guy that I'm always waiting for everything to click because if everything does click and the walk rate goes down to like 10%, like even that number is a bit higher than you would like,
Right.
but that number for Tanner McDougal is like if he gets to a 10% walk rate, he's going to be a very good pitcher because the stuff is very loud. He's a big framed guy, and it's just about everything moving together and moving in sync to be able to throw strikes consistently. And he looks good so far this year. The walk rate obviously is a bit higher than you would like, but he's been able to limit runs, limit contact, and so far, McDougal looks very good through his 21 and two thirds innings so far this year.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm with you there. I think it's gonna hopefully continue to trend that direction because he could be a piece. Like this is still a guy who was top 30 at one point, is out of the top 30 now, but could easily slip back into it given that he's still 22 years old despite being in the organization for a long time, and he's got the juice for it. He's
Mhm.
definitely he's hitting numbers. Ian points it out here. Yeah,
Yep.
he could hit 100 someday. That's for sure. He's definitely
Yep.
got the arm strength for it. Lucas Gordon, the other guy in Winston Salem that we should mention, who's the fourth guy in our rotation here. Lucas Gordon is just doing what he did last year in Kannapolis, and then he got to Winston and it ticked down a little bit, and now it's ticking up again because he's used to the level. He feels like the guy who's going to like in a handful of games is going to adjust to the level he's at every time because he's
Right.
a pretty polished pitcher. He's consistent. He doesn't walk a ton of guys. And now the stuff is actually playing up a little bit more this year, which is good to see from Gordon. You know, the strikeout rate now is last year he was in high A. He gets to Winston. He's walking 7 per 9. Now he's walking 10 per 9 through his first handful of starts here. 4 starts, 18 and 2/3 innings. He's got a 2.89 ERA. He's got a FIP of 3.16. Like it's been all around just quality outings from Lucas Gordon.
Yeah, in his 18.2 innings, he has only walked 5 batters and struck out 21. So that's a great strikeout to walk ratio.
We'll
And
take
I
that.
believe he had like what, like an 11 inning scoreless streak or something like that. He went two
Yeah,
appearances
and he came
shutout
two in
back
a
to
row.
back.
Buddy, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he looks good, man. Lucas Gordon is a steady pitcher. There's not a ton of projection in terms of the upside, but if he can be a crafty, get outs consistently type of
right.
guy, like I'm all for that as a left hander. Right, the White Sox they develop lefties, man. We keep talking about
Yep.
this, and the next guy we're going to talk about definitely fits that category. For those
Yep.
who haven't taken a second to look yet, I highly encourage you to go to the FutureSox Twitter page and X page and check out the highlights from Christian Opper's couple of starts this season,
My
particularly his
lord.
first start of the year and then his most recent one as well. Christian Opper could very easily be the next in the line of White Sox lefties that show out and show up. This guy looks really good. He looks
Yeah.
really good. This is a fifth round draft pick in 2023 at a junior college, a guy that the White Sox had looked at high school, ends up signing with the White Sox from junior college in 2023, spends all of last year in the ACL, working through a small injury he had that he told me about, also just figuring himself out as a pitcher, making some mechanical adjustments. Like last year was all about just getting his body up to speed, getting his mechanics in shape, getting his stuff moving well. He makes his Kannapolis debut this year, and man, it's 13 and a third, 24 strikeouts. That, for those at home, is a 46.2% strikeout rate, only a 7.7% walk rate. Opper has, he's been excellent. He's been
Yeah.
really, really good. A 3.38 ERA, but this is the one thing I love. I'm a FIP guy, man. Like I don't know about you, but I
Yeah.
think for I personally put more weight in FIP, and I think in general, like its ability to just focus on the outcomes purely in a pitcher's
Yeah.
control, right? Like it's prioritizing walks and strikeouts over anything else, and home runs allowed. Opera with a 3.38 ERA, but that is translates to a 1.36 FIP so far this season. Um, he just looks really good, dude. It's a plus fastball and a plus sweeper and a changeup that has been sneaky good. And he added that changeup this offseason. He told me that he's been playing around with the changeup for a while. He's always had a changeup, but he's never really liked it. It's never been good for him. He changed his changeup. The White Sox casually becoming the changeup central of baseball, honestly. And Opper, with a plus fastball and sweeper already, if that changeup takes another step forward, you're looking at 3+ pitches.
Yeah, Opper looks like exactly what I expected from him last year, but it
Yeah.
was rough last year. Struggled with command. He said it himself. His mechanics weren't in sync. He was struggling with his delivery and everything that had to do with the mechanical side of things. Because in terms of pure stuff, it's great. It's always been great.
Yep.
But with him only allowing 4 walks through his first 13.1 affiliate ball innings,
Yeah.
that's a real sign of something special happening with Hopper. And it's gonna be interesting to see how his arm plays up or holds up over the longer season. But if he can continue to throw even like 3-4 innings a start, like this is a top 15 prospect very easily in the White
Yeah.
Sox system.
Yeah, and the first start was 4 and 2/3, and he gets pulled just with a little command drifting. And then the last start was 5 full innings with only 2 hits
Yeah,
allowed. Like, I'm excited to see what Opera looks like. I think the fastball being, mid to upper 90s, right? I think he's topping 97 right now. I think he's sitting around 95. But then his sweeper being at, at a 80-ish part range, like that is crazy. I'm going to pull up a little bit of data here just because I have some data on him. So I definitely want to, give the people some further information on Christian Opera here. Yeah, I mean, the fastball being sitting at 94 point. This is from his first start of the season when he went no hit, a handful of no hit innings. So I don't have the most recent start, but his first start of the season, it's 94.5 sitting and topping at 97.7, a strike rate of 70% that game on the fastball with movement. It's a pitch that has, 14 inches of horizontal, 14 inches of vertical vert and 13 inches of horizontal movement. It's not even a straight fastball, right? So like if he was throwing a four seam, it could probably get up even further in terms of velocity,
Right.
to be honest. But he's got movement on it. And then the sweeper was sitting at 77. So that's a over a 17 and a half mile per hour difference between his fastball and his sweeper. And then that sweeper having 13 and a half inches of horizontal movement with pretty much flat vertical movement as a sweeper. And then you got a changeup mixed in that is sitting at 80 or so, but he was able to throw it in that game for an 80% strike rate. And it's got 16 inches of movement towards his arm side, right? Really good metrics, really good stuff, and just a live arm in Christian Opper.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him continue to throw this year because if he can be the next part of the next wave of prospects, there's not many good young pitchers in the White Sox organization. Blake Larson went down with Tommy John. That sucks. But if Opper can be the sort of next wave of talent that comes up, because that was something that the last rebuild failed to have, is there was one wave and then there was nothing. There was no supplemental pieces.
Yep.
But if Opper
100%.
if Opper can be a guy where, he's 21 years old and the rotation is full, it's Grant Taylor, Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, etc. That's a trade piece right there. And that even if he nets you like a solid big leaguer, like that's a development success. Like that is something
or just a guy to have in the pipeline too, right? Like you need those guys in the pipeline, and even if he becomes, a reliever, whatever, like the stuff is good.
It's
Right
so
now,
good.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exciting to see that. So that's our last starter. Let's go to some bullpen guys. Bullpen guys do not get enough love. And even though we're at an hour now, for those who are sticking around with us, we appreciate you being here. And for those listening on recording, definitely feel free to bounce around the episode, explore a little bit. But bullpen guys are still worth our time to mention. There's 5 bullpen guys we put together. All 5 of these guys, I think, are nearing promotion territory based on how they've thrown. Obviously, bullpen guys are usually older for the level than an average player on a team. We'll start with Addison Coffey. Like, what does Addison Coffey need to do to be in the big leagues, man? Like, speaking of Tim Elko, like, this is another guy, like, I think Addison Coffey could be legit innings for the White Sox bullpen, like, tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I don't know what Addison Coffey needs to do because I wanted him up to start the year. And, they signed some. Addison Coffey was very good last year.
Yeah.
And so I wanted him up just to see another young arm in the mix. But Addison Coffey looks great this year. I think he had like a 0 ERA for like 7-8 outings, something nuts like that. But Coffey is an older reliever. I think he's 25, 26.
Yeah, he's just turned 26 this offseason. So, it was a third round pick, right? Like, this is not a guy who was no pedigree. It was a 2020 draft, so that draft was a mess. But, a third round pick in the 2020 draft and has made his way up and, came in as probably as a fast track reliever. That was kind of the idea with him. And then last year, like a 1.55 last year between Birmingham and Charlotte, 1.55 ERA, just continuing to shove. The strikeout numbers were high. This year in 14 2/3 innings, he has 28 strikeouts, Dylan. Like, I mean, come on. And maybe not the ERAs. Sure, the ERA is 3.68. ERA doesn't matter in that tiny of a sample size, right? Like, a couple home runs have burned him so far early. 28 strikeouts in 14 2/3. Like, I'm ready to see that at the big league level if you're doing that in Charlotte.
Yeah, it's just another young bullpen arm that should get innings but isn't going to, because you can maybe trade a Penn Murphy, you can maybe trade a Tyler Gilbert,
can DFA
maybe
a Penn Murphy, or it's probably, but yeah, regardless.
But I hope Coffey gets some run in the big leagues at some point in the very near
I'm
future,
hoping later at some point this season, if somebody goes down with injury or something, like the 40-man thing is also tricky. He's not on the 40-man, but like Coffey deserves to be in the big league pen sooner than later for sure. Andrew Dahlquist is next up. Andrew Dahlquist has been really good for 2 years now. And I think this is another guy who's like pedigree doesn't fit results early on, so then falls off the radar, and that's normal. That's kind of what happens. But Andrew Dahlquist was a starter coming up. The organization, developing as a starter, it transitions into a bullpen role, I believe, just last year. I think he was still making starts all of most
Mm-hmm.
of 2023. Last year, transitioned into a bullpen role, spends the whole year in Birmingham, was really good all season. The strikeout numbers were solid, still a little bit iffy on the command here and there, but pretty good numbers all around last year. So far this year, 7 outings, 12 and a third innings, not a single run allowed.
Zero.
What is it? 3 hits allowed in 12 and a third. So 3 hits and 4 walks. So he's allowed 7 base runners in 12 and a third innings to go along with his 11 strikeouts. Charlotte, please,
Yeah.
it's time. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Andrew Dahlquist is 24 years old. He's been in the organization for since 2019 now. So he was an 18-year-old high school draft pick. Yeah, he isn't the starter that you maybe envisioned him to be when the White Sox drafted him in the third round. With that said, a ton of progress made in the past 2 years as a reliever, and all done in Birmingham. So it's enough. We've seen 45 games of Andrew Dahlquist in Birmingham. I'm ready to see him in Charlotte, and I'm ready to see Andrew Dahlquist have a chance to make his debut later this season, honestly.
100%. It's the similar Addison Coffey statement where, young guy who isn't going to get innings in the big league pen, but is absolutely deserving of it because
Yeah.
Dahlquist, like you said, 0 ERA through an entire month of minor league baseball. That's
It's the
probably
three
pretty
hits
good.
that stands out to me too. Literally
Yeah.
not getting hit at all.
Yeah.
It's not like,
It's
oh, he's getting hit a little. No,
crazy.
he's not getting hit at all.
No.
Moving on to the next guy, Robert just asked about him. This is our third guy up in our all April bullpen, Jared Kelly. So I had a great conversation with Jared Kelly in Arizona that I'm not sure I told you much about, but I talked to him on the backfield, just catching up with him a little bit. I met him in Birmingham 2 years ago when I was out there doing coverage, and catching up with him in Arizona this spring. He was like, man, I have not been healthy in a long time. And it is clear. And you can see it. He's struggled the past few years. He hasn't been the version of this himself that we hoped he had, he was going to be, right? This is a guy I was super high on as a second round high school pick in 2020. Similar line of thought to some of these other guys we're talking about with Coffey and with Dahlquist. Sometimes draft picks, starters, pitchers especially, it just doesn't work as a starter. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean they can't be a successful pitcher, and an adjustment to a bullpen role can often really unlock some things for guys. Kelly gets off-season shoulder surgery. That's what he was telling me. He hadn't been feeling right. He got a procedure done on his shoulder. He'd had a couple minor procedures over the past few years, but just decided this off-season, they decided it was time to just get the shoulder fixed, get in there, take care of some things. I don't know exactly the nature of the surgery. Has shoulder surgery, comes into the spring, spends all of February kind of ramping up his arm, and then started throwing live a little bit behind schedule of some of the other guys, but then got in games live in March and really started to feel like his stuff was coming back and that it was more lively than it had been. So far, and this is a guy who was in Double-A for much of last year, or for a few games last year, and then spent the rest of the time in Winston. So far in Winston, a guy who, an example, just like Tanner McDougal, Kelly's 23 years old. I think it seems like he should be 25, 26 now because he's been in the organization for so long. He's only 23, and the stuff has always been lively. And if he's more healthy than ever, I'm ready to see that at the next level too, because his only experience in Birmingham, he really struggled there. But this year, through 8 games in Winston-Salem in April, 8 and 2/3 innings, 4 hits allowed, 3 walks, and 12 strikeouts across those 8 and 2/3 innings. Just like Dahlquist, has been lights out so far. Yeah.
0 ERA for Jared Kelly. The walks is going to be the big thing for him going forward because if he can limit the walks, it's going to be it's up arrows for him. And 12 punch outs in 8 and 2/3 innings. You do the math. It's 1 out away from 9 innings. So it's an above 12 strikeouts per 9. And
Yep.
for Jared Kelly, it's always been about health. You were saying it. You went on you were talking about his health, but yeah, if Jared Kelly can just be healthy and be the guy that we thought he could be coming out of high school, that's perfect.
Yeah, 100%. I think that he should be in Birmingham soon. Let's just move it up the chain, right? Coffey to Chicago, Dahlquist to Charlotte, and Kelly to Birmingham. I think that is I would do that tomorrow. I don't know if it'll happen immediately, but all three of those guys, excellent Aprils, all deserving of promotions in the near future. A name that is probably 2 names actually that are probably pretty unfamiliar, I would say, to the general public. And I hope for those that are actually watching us right now, you probably might know these names because we talk about every single player in the farm system. So we appreciate you. But Cleat Hartzell Dog is a fun name here. A guy who,
Oh yeah.
an undrafted free agent last year, who made it to, also, first of all, his full name is awesome. Cullen Cletus Hartzog. I don't know if you knew that. That is just a sick
I did
name.
not know that.
That's just great. But Cleet Hartzog, great name. And this is a guy who was undrafted last year. One of the first guys that the White Sox signed as an undrafted free agent last season, and was pretty quickly, made his way to Kannapolis last year. Really good last year to start his professional career. 6 games in Canny, gave up 1 run across 8 innings, 10 strikeouts. And this year, actually pretty crazy. His line so far this year is almost exactly the same as what he did last year in Kannapolis. So last year in 8 innings in Kannapolis, so far, his minor league career so far, 8 innings in Kannapolis, 3 hits, 1 run, 10 strikeouts. This year, 8 1/3 in Winston, 4 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. That's consistent, man. That's
Yeah.
consistent if you ask me.
Yeah, that's a 1 ERA. So if he keeps that up for 900 innings, there's a Hall of Famer right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, Clete
No,
Hartzog
it's been good.
is. Yeah, he's been great. Him being undrafted and the White Sox grabbing him was pretty cool because he's a funky guy, and it's stuff that you wouldn't expect from a reliever of his stature. He's a big guy, and he moves pretty well for his size. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks good, and he's a guy that has been solid so far, and has been probably the stud of that Winston-Salem bullpen to this point, and has just really been a consistent guy all year for them. And I think is given the fact that he's 23, he's already in Winston, like a fun out of nowhere type of relief arm to keep an eye on, which is
Yeah,
always great. Speaking of another
100%.
guy, this is a guy that our guy Cam Linzelli, who we both are friends with on social media and everything, has pointed out to both of us, a guy that he worked with over time, and someone that is in Kannapolis. Eric McAtee is closing high leverage innings in the Kannapolis bullpen, and looks really good. Dylan, tell me about Eric McAtee a little.
Yeah, Eric McAtee in April through 12 innings, only allowed 4 hits and had a 0.73 ERA, 4 walks, 12 punchies. And for an undrafted free agent, perfect. Like I don't care that it's in single A. McAtee has the stuff to do it in high A, double A, wherever, because it's a 4-pitch mix, and it's a big league 4-pitch mix in terms of like movement. The velocity, obviously, you would want more velocity as you go up, but McAtee looks great. He looks like a future big, or I want to say big leaguer, like right away,
Yeah.
but he looks like an arm that could pitch out of a big league bullpen someday.
Yeah, McAtee looks good, man. I think that this is, actually speaking of that chain of command of all those guys that need to move up a level, let's get Eric McAtee to high A, I think, right? I mean, undrafted guy, 6'5", lengthy, has a lot of movement on his stuff. He's throwing 4 pitches well with command. This is a guy that I think, at 24 years old as an undrafted guy, I think let's get him to Winston-Salem. Rounds out our bullpen. That's a pretty fun group of 5 pitchers. I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's a cool
very
mix
fun.
too, because it's 3 high level draft picks who didn't necessarily pan out as starters that are now really
Mhm.
really finding their groove as a reliever, and then a pair of undrafted guys who were
Yeah,
undrafted guys that get stuck in the bullpen like most of the time are not going to do much. And
yeah.
these two look really good, and that's the type of thing that we like to shine up, to put some shine on and just get into there. Just a brief thing, just for somebody that just joined in, David. We appreciate you asking about Perez. We did talk about Heral Perez earlier.
Yep.
Heral Perez looks good. He looks really solid. I wanted to
Oh,
just mention that for you. He does look really good. The power's been legit. That will just about do it. If anybody else has any questions, throw it in the chat for sure, and we can finish out with a few questions here if anybody has anything. But that's most of what we got here today. The All April team for FutureSox. It's fun. Peyton Pillette, a good request, had a few rough games this month.
yeah,
Has had a few rough outings, so he doesn't crack our team of the month. But a guy that we still have high hopes for. A couple of blowups early
100%.
in the season doesn't do a ton. He was with big league camp this season, and 18 strikeouts in 10 and 2/3 innings for Pillette. So the stuff is there. Just got hit hard a couple times, and that happens. I think his numbers will very much even out as the season goes on. I think right now the ERA is inflated because he gave up 3 home runs, 2 being in one game. I think so. Not a big deal there for Pillette. I'm not worried about him at all. I think that will be a guy that will make one of our May team of the month
Yeah,
or June team of the month most likely.
100%.
Cool. Dylan, you got anything else? I think that's all we got
That's
for
pretty
today.
much
We,
it.
we we talked for a while. Thank you to everybody
Yeah.
for tuning in. We appreciate it for sure. And for those listening and recording, thank you for catching up with us and hearing about the top performers in the system. We will be back soon. I TBD for next week. I might have a conflict next Monday, but otherwise we will be back soon enough on the FutureSox Roundup. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Dylan.